Okay, so this meeting's a follow-up to our Slack conversation about ownership of the DevOps toolchain image and how it's maintained. In the document, I kind of wrote in what my thoughts were, because I definitely see the concerns that we're going back and forth. To kind of say it for the recording, on the product side, and I think this is a noob, is responsible for the adding and removing of stages, as well as where stages are placed in the toolchain. So the last update we made was we moved protect, or we got rid of defend and put in protect, and protect went after configure in the DevOps toolchain. I see that as a product-based decision, because we're handling whether or not the stages exist or not.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, on the brand and digital design, you're responsible for the actual visualization of what that looks like, whether that's the old style, a new style, as well as maintaining the assets that make it work. And then I just added in there, including generating any variants that are needed. And in the Slack, I gave the example that each of the direction pages has that image with everything grayed out except for that stage, to kind of show where it fits in the DevOps toolchain. That was my high level. I'm more than willing to continue to expand upon it and discuss whether or not we think that's a good breakdown. Before I go into what I listed as next steps, does anybody have any questions?
That all makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yep, we're totally aligned on that.
Okay. To your question, Becky, like how often do stages get updated? Hopefully not regularly. In the 1 year, 15 months I've been here, this is the only change to whether stages were added, removed, or moved around. I can't state that it's always going to be every or once a year or every other year. I just don't see it happening often. Anoop, do you want to add anything to that, or do you agree with that?
I agree with that. I will add one thing to it, which is that if we get towards a public liquidity event anytime, all bets are off in terms of, you all might probably want to change and uplift things, but from a core product perspective, we don't have any intentions to change it.
Sure. So the reason that I was asking that question was to kind of get into the conversation with you guys about how we're making the updates to that image, because if it's not updating monthly or even less than that, it's not going to be a big lift on the design team. When you let them know, okay, we're going to update these stages, they can update that asset and swap it out in the regular places. And I would look to Lauren and Brandon for how we would most effectively do that with the implementations of the design system and the CMS that are going in, or if they think that we should continue on this. I just wanted to have that information in the bag to say like, okay, cool, this is not something that's happening so regularly that we need a very programmatic solution to it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the main value that Sam was trying to address was making it easier to kind of give you all a little bit of background. Like that image was maintained by Mark, and when Mark left, nobody really owned it. I volunteered to take it, and I more than willingly gave it to my boss when he said he would be the owner of it. The biggest challenge with the image was it was a sketch file, and we don't have Sketch anymore. I converted over to Figma, so at least it's in there. But the changes that you're making look great, and they look completely different than what it looked like. So we can gladly get you added to the Figma where we put it, or if you want the raw sketch file, I still have that. But I think Sam's goal was, instead of having to make, I think it's like 6 or 7 versions of it, he just did it programmatically because that's Sam. But I agree with you, if it's being updated, even if it's once a year at the most, maintaining PNGs of the different variants is not a lot of overhead.
Yeah, and then the other reason that I was suggesting that we have it as a design file instead of what you guys had made is that image itself ends up getting used in a lot of places, but they must have taken it and adjusted it. So because it's a great image to describe the product in content, or other people, I think they likely just screenshot it, some of the other groups, because there's a lot of everyone can contribute. So what we wanted to do is say, you know, the ultimate goal for next year is that we'll put a dam in place so that we have a data asset management system. So there's a single source of truth. And then, you know, for an image like that, that is so great to represent the product, it would be nice if there was one group that owned it and had that file that they updated. So we always knew it was the most accurate, and they could swap it out on content pieces because they would have it and know how to do that. I know this got brought up just because when we were doing those small website updates, we just didn't know. I thought it was just an image that was there that was older. So that's why we just swapped it out with the new one, which is, it's great that this conversation came up so we can figure out a way to do that best.
Hey, Becky, real quick. I know that Matt in general on the brand team has some good thoughts on how to make images easy for other teams to customize and whatnot. Is it okay if I add him to the call? He said he was free at the moment.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and then the other thought that I had, I already lost, so never mind, but I'll invite him.
Do any of you have Figma accounts today that I can just add you to the project?
Yeah.
I'll have to do it by email address because when I type in your names, you're not coming up. So just do it by email.
I don't know if I have mine set up, but you can skip me in this because I'm not going to do any of the work. I'm just going to get it onto you guys.
I'm really excited to see the walkthrough of the Ruby program, because that is possible that we could update that with the new SVG asset and utilize some of that same functionality.
Yeah, I was volunteering Sam's time to do that. I don't think we would do it today because it's probably a little complicated, but he could do a separate call with you and walk you through what he did and how it works.
Sure. So thanks, Matt, for joining us. We are talking, do you know the image we're talking about?
Sure don't.
Okay. Could one of you guys share that really quickly and give?
Yeah, here I can share the screen.
Sure.
Not leave meeting. There we go. So this is the image we're talking about. And it's located in several places on the website, including like direction pages.
And I just noticed, David, that one actually had protect and monitor still switched.
Well, I think you just did it in the SVG afterwards, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we didn't go back and update the Figma.
So we can update the Figma image as well as part of what we're doing.
Yeah. And then this is sort of the non-branding version of it, I suppose, right? I think if you go to the actual product page, you will see the one that I think is more in line with. Oh, it's still that one. I thought we changed it with all those borders and treatments, but sounds like
we reverted it just to.
Yeah.
So Matt, so just some background on this. Vic updated this image to be more on brand, and we swapped it out in the updates, but we have discovered that there is actually a, this team had, that image is done with a custom Ruby application. I don't know, you guys use the phrasing for that. Anyway, so what I was suggesting is, because that image is so general and we use it in a lot of places, is that the brand and design team should be the single source of truth for that image, and hold it. So when you guys are making updates to it, so the stages of that, the stages have changed, which is why this conversation happened. And so what Vic made is actually old. So what I was suggesting is that when a stage changes or there's an update, they put in an issue request to your team so that you guys can update that image and make sure that it's consistent and it's used properly throughout. So we are now talking about how we can most effectively have that image be maintained and possibly updated so that we don't have two things going in two different places, whatever the best way to do that is. And so when I asked how often the stages would possibly update, and David said when he's been here, it's only updated once. So it's not like it's updating every month. It's maybe once a year. It could be a little bit more than that, but I was saying it's not that big of a deal if we have an update for you guys to update those assets, because if it's, once a year, every 6 months, it's not a big lift on your end to just change some of the words around to maintain that as a single source of truth, or if we want to have something more advanced for updating. So that's the background.
Sure. What would be the return on putting time into making a more like custom developed solution rather than relying on design? Like it's not that we don't have time, especially if it's only once a year. I'm just wondering, what would be the benefit to a more robust, customizable code-based solution? Or is it preferable just to get us to change things around and re-upload the SVG?
I think if I was to repeat what and Becky and I said this before you joined, Matt, but I think the team is open to it being programmatic, and Sam White, who's on the call, did the current programmatic version of it. And I think he's more than willing to have a meeting, go over what he did and how it works, and enable you and the team to be able to create that again with the updated asset, so that way it can be programmatically changed as needed.
Sure. Yeah, my consideration would be like aesthetic appeal and effectiveness versus efficient for as often as it'll change. Did you have the version that Vic put together, Becky?
Yeah, give me a second to pull it up. You guys can
Sure.
keep discussing and I'll go grab it.
Sure. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I thought of the thing I forgot earlier, which was another consideration is if we ever get a digital asset management platform online, that may help with kind of figuring out the single source of truth aspect and, where these images come from and that sort of thing, or where they get held so other people can edit or contribute and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be updating a lot of stuff with the brand in the next couple quarters. I know the website is going to be undergoing a lot of big changes. So for me, experience tells me that anything graphic related should be owned within our house and then pushed out from that single source of truth, like Brandon was talking. While it can be cool to, programmatically create these graphics, effectiveness wise, I don't see it being that valuable, especially if we're going to be using them for, ebooks, a lot of like any kind of marketing materials, because then the single source of truth then becomes the website, which we have to pull from rather than the website pulling from the graphics that we create. So that would be experience tells me to keep the graphics under one house and let everyone draw from it.
Yep, that was my suggestion as well, Matt.
Okay.
Yep. I'll just show these to you guys to make sure that we're on the same page. So this is Vic. Is this it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the simplified version. And then this is the more complex version. And so the issue came up because the stages of this had been updated and changed, but Vic didn't know that. So she made this update, the rebranded version of this, and we swapped it out on those web pages. But then the stages were not correct because those had changed. So that's what was the background for this. But yeah, the same thing, unless David and Sam, unless you guys have a strong objection for any reason, that is my recommendation as well. To hold the brand and design repos or the DAM or however it gets put into, like however it evolves, them being the single source of truth, and you just letting them know what they need to change, and we can change out the assets on that, when something happens. Because if it's not a regular update that's, very frequent, I feel like there's going to be more issues and problems with it being a programmatic update versus having them own that asset. And it's not very hard for them to make those changes, and we just put them in the repo and update with MRs.
Yeah, do you mind if I share my screen real quick, just
Yep.
so that we're super clear on the ask? I mean, one way or the other, I'm pretty indifferent. I think as long as we get out of this, you know, the visualizations that we need. And just to be clear, so, you know, one of the reasons we moved it to being programmatic is because we have all of these different incarnations of that image where we're graying out the other sections, and then we're now automatically generating these icons and the text by it, depending on, you know, the page that you're on. So if you're on the product direction page for ops, it's going to highlight those stages that are part of the ops section, and you know, it automatically grays those out in the image. So I think we could go with what you're suggesting. We would just need to make sure to get, you know, a different version of this along with, you know, these side graphics, you know, for all of the different direction pages that we have. And I'm just showing you a few of them here.
I'd like to hop in and just say, I still think it's possible we could use the same program to generate that asset using the new branded SVG images.
Okay.
I think you can too, but to kind of speak to Becky's comment a second ago, I would love to not have anything to do with this image. So just make sure that's clear. Like, however you all want to do it, Sam and I and Anoop will support you in that. So if you want to do it programmatically, Sam can show what he had done to do that dynamically. I've added you all to the Figma file. Sam will make the minor change we made after we updated Figma, so you have that as well. I just want to know how we can support you all in taking that on, because product doesn't want it. Product only ended up with it by accident.
Okay, cool. So Lauren and Matt and Brandon, you guys can discuss how, since you have that information, you can discuss what the best course would be for that and make that decision. That's up to you guys. From your team, I think just, you know, making sure that we get the list of what the correct stages are. And I know that you said, Sam, when you were looking through that, you were like, oh, that one didn't update. So just if you guys can make sure that the Figma files are completely updated before it goes over to us. And then I don't know, in the Figma file, can you guys date them? Like, what's the best way to do that? So I would say the only other step we want to have in here is just making sure that it's documented if a stage is updated when you guys contact our team for that. So if we decide to do it programmatically, that's great, but I guess Lauren and Brandon would have that. So we want to just make sure that that documentation for there's been an update, the Brandon design team and the website team are updated, and what those updates are to make sure that they can be implemented properly.
So we can update that Figma file to be accurate, because I didn't realize the website's accurate, to be clear. So the website is 100% accurate. When Sam moved from it being a PNG to it becoming auto-generated, I can't remember, I think it was Kenny, the product director for ops, asked for two of them to be flopped, and Anoop was okay with that. We didn't go back and update Figma, but we can do that. But I would say there's no need to revision it after that point, because you would become the owner of it. And we would essentially no longer look at that Figma file ever again. So, yeah. So
we just want to know, you guys just are going to have to make sure you tell us when there's an update to the stages so that we can make that update in the Figma file.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we would do is do your suggestion, open up an issue for the team to look at it. And then any changes are driven by essentially realignments or growth. So what caused this change was we got rid of the defend stage, created a protect stage. We will then also attach that issue we create for your team on that realignment issue. So that way you have visibility into why the change is being made, when it's needed to be done, and all the other details as to why we did it. Because I think that's important for brand as well, so you kind of understand the logic behind the changes.
Right.
Yeah, my instinct as well, too, just thinking about this for a second, given that, you know, SVGs are relatively light, we could make a sprite and just include all the different states. And then if updates do come in, if new ones get added, we can add it, you know, from the left axis over towards the right. So then we just have them all in one file. And then if you want to display certain ones on certain pages, you just adjust the positioning via the CMS, and we could just have it all in one file. It's just it just shifts. I'm not sure what the thought is on that, but
I think we will leave all of that detail. You all decide what is the right and easiest way to manage that. I don't, like David and Sam said, we're okay either way.
okay, yeah. Then I think Brand will design them up, and we'll work with Brandon and Lauren to implement them. So sounds good to me.
By the way, just as a side question, where are all the branding image assets stored? Are they now in a GitLab repo, or are they going to be in Google Drive?
They're in GitLab repo. There's none in Google Drive.
Oh, okay. So if this is in GitLab repo, then that makes it even easier, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And I think it's a separate repo from the www repo,
Okay.
right, Matt?
Yeah, I think we're in corporate marketing, which was outdated 2 days ago. Now it's back up to date because we're in corporate marketing. So it accidentally worked out.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Anything
Okay.
else for you guys?
Yeah, say for next steps, Sam, would you schedule a call with Matt and whoever else wants to see what you're doing to modify the SVG today? Okay.
Yeah, would that be helpful to you? Is that worthwhile? Yes.
I would love a walkthrough. Just you
Okay,
just
so
point
Lauren,
through the philosophy and like where the code is.
Laura and Matt, anyone else?
I think I'm good. I think I'll get it secondhand if need be, but yeah, I think I'm okay.
Do a pair coding session.
Perfect.
Sam and Lauren, if you do it, it would be great if you record it so others can see how.
Yeah, perfect.
And then we will ping everyone once we make the change to the Figma image, but I expect I can do that this afternoon, or Sam might be able to get to it today as well. And then it'll officially all be yours at that point.
Cool.
I think those are the only next steps. Is there anything else we need to discuss, or anything we need to make sure is getting addressed?
No, the one thing I just want to mention, and this will just because the teams are, Matt mentioned it quickly, but you guys probably didn't know, is that the brand and design team was on the inbound marketing team, but it is now back in corporate marketing. So that is the group or the channel that you guys would want to make sure that you ping with anything moving forward.
So it would be good then if on this, in the notes, if you could link to where we'd create the issue so we make sure we create in the right project, that would be helpful for us.
Cool. I
Okay.
don't know what that is yet, Matt. If you happen to know that, that's fine, but we'll just link to the corporate marketing general issues.
Yeah, I don't know where anything is in GitLab. I'm terrible at it.
Okay, I'll put the regular one in there.
Okay. Okay, well, that's it then. Thanks everyone for your time, and let us know if you need anything else after we kind of walk you through the Ruby code and get you the Figma file.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.